Why So Cold contains content that is graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised. Why So Cold relies largely on police or news documents, eyewitness accounts, press conferences, and interviews. Every episode of Why So Cold is produced with respect to the victims, families, and communities involved.
From Watts Creative Studios, this is Why So Cold. On December 8, 1987, Leesburg Police Officers were notified of skeletal remains of a young woman found off Gant Lane near Sycolin Road. The discovery triggered a mystery that Loudoun County Sheriff's deputies continue to struggle with to this day. In 1987, Charlotte Powell was a 27-year-old and described by her mother and sister as a free spirit. She lived in Pennsylvania and was a known hitchhiker who often asked for rides from strangers and traveled around Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. Charlotte was last seen by her family in July of 1987 in Mechanicsville. After that, nobody heard from the young woman for months. As Charlotte had a history of mental problems and was known to wander from home, nobody was too worried at first. A similar thing had happened many times before. Meanwhile, on December 8th, two gas pipeline employees working in an isolated area in Leesburg discovered skeletal human remains in the woods near the gas and power lines. Due to the advanced decomposition, identifying the remains was a difficult process, especially as the victim's description, height, hair color, approximate time of death, age, and dental records did not match any information available in the police's system. Authorities even used an artist to reconstruct a clay model of the woman's face in hopes of finding out her identity. This sculpture became known as Alice to the police and her creator, Margaret Center. Her work was helpful in that it generated public interest in the case and some leads, but the woman's real identity remained a mystery. However, success came after Charlotte Ann Powell's parents finally reported her missing, and she appeared in an NCIC, the FBI's National Crime Information Computer Network check. Afterward, the police matched dental information from the skeleton with Charlotte's dental records, confirming that the remains belong to her. Unfortunately, there's not much else known, as Charlotte's body was so badly decomposed, a cause of death could not be determined. However, it is believed she was sexually assaulted prior to her death, as she was naked and lying in a position that suggested that she had been raped. In these kinds of cases, biological fluids would be the best way to identify the perpetrator. But as there were only bits of clothing and bones left, getting a sample is almost impossible. Of course, since the 1980s, the technology has improved though. The vice president and director of lab operations for one of the largest DNA labs in the country said, "We have obtained sperm from samples that have been over 40 years old, and sperm, of all other biological fluids, is a hardy material. But when items are out in the elements and are exposed to humidity and get wet, with sunlight coming down on them, it becomes more difficult to obtain DNA from these samples." That is exactly what happened with Charlotte's remains, which were dumped at a remote location and left exposed to the elements, possibly for as long as 3 to 4 months. The police believe she could have been killed in August or October. After that, there's not much left for the investigators to work with. Charlotte's personality also made it hard to follow her steps, as investigator Jay Merchant said, "One of the most difficult things about the case is the unpredictability of her. Where would she have gone? Who would she have gotten with? As a result, the police have never named a person of interest or a suspect in this case." Jay says, "We're checking possibilities, but I can't say that we have a prime suspect. Some have found it interesting that Charlotte's remains were located just 6.8 miles from where another cold case victim, Veronica Hepworth, was found 5 years earlier. On top of that, Cynthia Gastel disappeared precisely 2 years before Veronica's death, and her body was discovered 2.2 miles away from Veronica, south on Route 15. Could it be possible all three deaths, with many similarities, were somehow connected, or just an unfortunate coincidence? Due to the lack of evidence, nobody knows for sure. After 35 years, the case of Charlotte Powell is still as big a mystery as it was straight from the start. Cold case detectives are asking for the public's help with the investigation, hoping that one day they could bring answers to what happened to her. Loudoun Sheriff Mike Chapman said in a release, "Detectives with the cold case unit believe with the passage of time, someone may be willing to come forward with information that may be the key to solving this cold case and help bring a sense of closure to the Powell family." Charlotte's case was reopened and examined in 2013. According to Loudoun Sheriff Mike Chapman, the reopening process is often challenging, but can be beneficial. It is true that people with possible knowledge of crimes that occurred further back in time may have been afraid to come forward, but are sometimes more willing to talk to authorities years later. Hopefully, that will happen with Charlotte. Anyone with information is asked to call the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit at 703-777-0475. Anyone wishing to remain anonymous are asked to call Loudoun Crime Solvers at 703-777-1919. And we will also have an online tip submission form available on our website at whysocoldpodcast.com. Our goal with Why So Cold is to keep these cases alive. And sadly, some of these cases just don't have a lot of information to go by. After talking with many local law enforcement officers and criminal investigators, this is usually the case. It's either a lack of evidence or lack of tips or cooperation. And that, to me, is why it's so important for podcasts like this and others that focus on the lesser known cases. And by keeping these people's names out there to the public, we keep their stories alive, and hopefully one day someone will call in with that tip that will bring closure to the family. I encourage you to visit our website at whysocoldpodcast.com. On our website, each episode has its own page, and on that page we put photos, news releases, videos, audio clips, and all the source links that we have used in the episode. So we encourage you to please visit our website, visit those pages, and if you have a podcast yourself, feel free to use that information and do an episode to keep these stories out there. You'll also find discussion boards on the site. Please use them. Please post any findings that you find on the cases. Or if we overlooked a source link, please let us know and engage in discussion about these cases so that they are not forgotten. Again, visit whysocoldpodcast.com. Also, if you have any questions, I would love to engage with people who listen to this podcast directly, and I'm pretty active on Twitter. My username is Woody G. Watts. And on the website, you'll see a link that says About the Host, and that's me. So visit that page. You'll find my Twitter feed and username, and I would love for you to reach out and engage with me about this episode or any of the past episodes, or another podcast that you've heard from Watts Creative Studios, such as the Route 29 Stalker. So visit whysocoldpodcast.com and connect with me on Twitter so that we can all help keep these cases alive. This has been an episode of Why So Cold. Visit our website at whysocoldpodcast.com. On our website, you will find all source material used in each episode, along with photos, media releases, and discussion boards for you to engage in discussion on each one of these cases. Also, follow us on social media. You'll find those links on the website as well. And if you'd like to ask me a question directly, my username on Twitter is Woody G. Watts. I'd love to connect with you about these cases and others. And let's help keep these cases alive.